just like right now we're recording, and I won't stop it until we go to leave. And if you sometimes when I'm talking to people, they might answer a question or tell a story, and then later on they think about it and they're like, I didn't mean to answer that way. I don't want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Almost everybody has done it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to worry about any of that. You have complete say over. I'm your friend.
Okay.
Like if you
right.
say something and you say, "Man, you know what? I wish I hadn't said that." It'll never be seen. Once I cut it, it'll disappear. I won't even have it.
Okay.
So don't worry any about that at all. But I'll try to make this easy. One of my goals is to sort of create a time capsule, if you will. I've compared this before to like a dusty old box of letters in your attic, in your grandkids' attic. Your grandkids, if the Lord holds off long enough, your grandkids are going to have babies one day, and they're going to hear stories about you and how much you meant to them. And, depending on the way the world is, they should be able to find this and get to hear you talk. And I think most of the people that would see it now I'm assuming is going to be our families, your Hopewell family, the people that care about you, the people at your church. So one of my goals is to always let them hear something new, something they didn't know. So I'll probably try to resist that Hopewell story as long as I can, and we'll get there. But I would love to hear about just you before you were the PE teacher at Michigan Avenue Elementary School, which is where I met you.
That's right.
And you were, when my memories go there, you were 10 feet tall. And correct me if I'm wrong, you had on some like dark sunglasses.
It was dark glasses, kind of like the horn rim, just the dark. It was what was popular back then.
Yeah.
But I look at my old wedding photos and I had those type glasses, and that's just the way it was. But yeah, a few pounds lighter back then. And
so I want to try to get before that. For instance, one thing I heard about you, me and my wife just went to Fort Lauderdale. You been there before?
I've been there. I was born at the I think it was Mary's Hospital, St. Mary's Hospital or something there. But yeah, I was born in Fort Lauderdale back in 1961.
61. And how long were you there?
We were there, I'm thinking around 5-6 years. My parents divorced, and Dad moved to Cleveland, Chattanooga area, Cleveland, because he got a job at Lee. And so we were still in Florida. So, so we moved here probably when I was 6. Moved back to Pompano, which was just a little north of there. It's where all my family was from.
That's actually where we were. We kind of bounced between Pompano and Lauderdale by the Sea.
Yeah. Remember it well. So a lot of family members were there. So we moved back when I was 12, and we lived with my grandparents at that time in Chattanooga. So my mother had a job, and we moved to Florida in Pompano for a year, and I just hated it. I wanted to be back to Tennessee, So I came back a little early, and they let me live with my grandparents for a little, and then everybody moved back, and went to my dad's about every weekend, just spend time with him. But his family were all from Florida.
Okay.
And my mother's family were all spread out, mainly Cleveland.
Huh. And you said he got a job at Lee. What was he doing?
He was a teacher, from what I recollect, at a high school down in Pompano, in Fort Lauderdale area. And then he got a job as a well, he wasn't a professor then, instructor at Lee. It was Lee College back then.
Uh-huh.
And he had been there since 93. He retired from there. He is a full professor. And that's where he spent most of his time.
Yeah.
He was a botany and microbiology professor.
Huh.
So I remember the days that before when I was in elementary school, I would go up there on the weekends and he would show me back at Lee. They had these little counters and glass partitions with animals in jars. It just fascinated me, from the
Yeah.
science department, just all this stuff. Good memories back then.
Yeah. Now, where did he lived in Cleveland?
He did. Well, he lived in Chattanooga for a while, and close to the old Church of God where they had camp meeting back. It's on Lee Highway. You'd never recognize it now because there's churches and apartment buildings. But back in the day, they had Tennessee Church of God camp meeting down there,
Huh.
and he lived somewhere close to the camp meeting site. And then he got him a house up here, and so I moved up here with him in '80 to go to Lee when I graduated from Tyner.
So Chattanooga, pretty much till you're 19
was my
years old.
home for
18
until I was 18. I graduated from Tyner. We lived in that
Tyner
area.
Ram.
Tyner Ram.
Huh.
And was there. Went to Tyner Junior, Tyner High. Went to Albert Long for kindergarten, and Bestie Shepherd all my elementary life.
Bestie Shepherd.
Bestie Shepherd. It's just down from Tyner.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a elementary school.
And what was your thing through school? Did you play any ball or did you
just baseball?
Baseball?
But when I got to high school, I didn't. I played golf. Switched from didn't play football or anything, but I just played golf and had a great time with it. And still do.
Huh. It's very cool. So you graduate there, and then you're going to go to Lee. You're going to move, and this is 1980.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one reason back then, if one of your parents worked there, then you got half tuition. I think nowadays it's full tuition.
I think so.
But back then it was half tuition, so it was kind of a no-brainer, and got to come up here, live with Dad, and had great time at Lee. It was Lee College back then, 84, and Dr. Hughes was our president. Very strict man, very strict, but had some good times at Lee. Made a lot of good friends.
Now, is that back in the time, and this may be a Lee history rabbit trail, but is that back in the time where the person running that college is pretty much a minister, like a preacher, essentially?
He did. Most of the presidents at that time, were ministers from higher ups in the Church of God.
Yeah.
And so Dale R. Hughes was not Dale, but Ray Hughes was Dale's brother, was the president then, and Lamar was another. I can't remember his name. Lamar Vest, I think, followed him.
He'd go on to be general overseer.
Yes. So that's the way it worked in the Church of God, I think. And and then I didn't get to be under Dr. Kahn, I think, but maybe I don't remember it. Yeah, it was very strict. Girls couldn't they had to wear culottes, and they couldn't wear shorts. It was wild. I mean, it was wild, but we had convocation, we had chapel every week, and it was a Christian college,
Yeah.
So,
wow. What did you guys have to shirt and
No,
tie?
I
Or-
mean, no. You could wear. You just couldn't wear. They didn't want you to wear shorts. Now, when after school and you played softball, which I did there, of course you could, but it was, they stayed on you. They had people walking around campus, checking you, and
yeah.
had a curfew for the girls.
Wow.
And the guys too, whoever
Sure.
you
Yeah.
had a curfew, you better be back in your dorm, and I didn't stay in the dorm. I stayed with Dad, but kind of wish I did. Now that I look back on it, you just don't get as connected when you don't live on campus.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard some of my friends that went there. They encouraged people to at least 1 year live on
Yes,
campus.
absolutely. Just to
Yeah.
get connected, and I didn't do that. I wish if I could do it over again, I would go live at least 1 year.
Yeah.
To get connected, get those friendships, because you just there's a lot of things going on campus you miss out on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, did you have any friends from then that you're still in contact with?
A few, not many, just through Facebook. They've all moved away since then. But I started off in business, and I quickly found out I wasn't great in math.
Yeah.
So I knew that when I had to take a statistics class, I I knew right then. I said I better change my major because that's not going to work. But I wanted to get into biology, and so I got my degree into biology and physical education or physical sciences, and I was happy about it. I loved every bit of it.
Huh. Okay, so you said graduate there in '84.
Mm-hmm.
You got a biology degree, physical science, or physical education.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Well, the journey of finding a job, I did my student teaching.
Have you met a lady yet, or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
Keep going.
This was that was later.
Okay.
But so I did my student teaching at Bradley Junior under David Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah. And got to know great folks, Johnny Cartwright, Marsha Goodwin, not Goodwin now, but
Yeah.
just Harold Morris. You just go back. I mean, it was a great time. So I did my student teaching, got to know all those
Was
folks.
Liz Jackson around by then?
Liz was there for a little bit. That's we have good stories back then. It's just that Johnny Cartwright and them, they taught me a lot about being a good physical education teacher and
Yeah.
some things so David, he was unique, but I tell you, I learned a lot from him. All of them I did. Marcia, we still talk to this day. And I saw Johnny the other day. I hadn't seen him in years. So, but it was a great experience, to do the student teaching there, and had to go to Cleveland High School too. Didn't know as many people there.
Yeah.
I
mean, that roster you just named off, they stuck around.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I learned from the best, and it was a great. James Barker was the principal. Paul Ramsey was there. So from then I was looking for a job. There were no PE jobs in the elementary world. Mm-hmm. And there were no PE jobs open in the secondary world. And so I'm thinking, well, golly bum. And a friend of mine that was in the system told me, wise man, he said, you get any job you can to get your foot in the door. And so I found out there was an in-school suspension job open at Bradley Junior. They had never had one before. So we were starting it from ground zero, Paul Ramsey and I. So they hired me. James Barker hired me. And so I worked for a semester.
Okay.
So this is
now. You mentioned Paul Ramsey. Is he the principal there?
He was assistant principal.
Okay. James Barger was the principal.
Yes.
Okay, yes. I'm there.
Yes. So got that job, and it was it was an adventure because nobody had ever had in school suspension. We were just kind of learning it as we go, and so I sat for probably a month, 3 weeks, maybe a month. I don't know, but until somebody got in trouble, and got put in school suspension, and they had me do other things, of course, but so when I first started getting people, kids in trouble, and uh, I just stayed with them and helped them do their work, and for all day long, they had to stay in there for a day or two or however long they got sentenced to in school suspension, but
Yeah.
so that was an adventure.
So it just took a minute for teachers or administrators even to see that as an option, or
Well,
figure out where it
yeah, I
fit.
think it's just how it worked, because once teachers started realizing they could, well, the teachers didn't do it. Mr. Ramsey at that time, Paul, he was the one that issued in school suspension. So
Yeah.
once that started working, then it just started. Man, I had 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 kids, and we'd have to go to lunch at a certain time, and
Yeah.
it was an adventure. It really was, and I had to make sure they did the work, and um, so that lasted till December.
Okay.
I was praying every day, please give me a job somewhere, because
Yeah.
I was thankful to get in and I got my foot in the door.
Now, while you're
And
there, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because I got my butt whooped by Paul Ramsey one time,
Yep.
and I didn't see it coming. Like, I didn't see this come, but he lit me on absolute fire. Of all because I wasn't a bad kid, but I was just
wow.
mischievous enough and they knew my parents don't care. I'll
Yeah.
get one when I get home too.
Yeah.
But Paul Ramsey just came out of nowhere. And I mean,
I
set
bet he
me
did.
on.
He's
Did
flexible.
Did he have that reputation, or did I just?
I wasn't. I mean, he supported the teachers, and I think so. Of course, all the PE teachers had that reputation.
Yeah.
You didn't want to get paddled by them.
Well, and that's where we we would talk about Coach Lewis and Mr. Dietrich and
Oh,
all
yeah.
these people, and you didn't want to mess with those
Yep.
guys. But
Yep.
here comes Paul Ramsey, and I'm
Yep.
thinking he'll take it easy. He brought a tear to my eye, buddy.
Well, you brought up a point. It takes me back to my middle school or junior high at that time. We did the mischievous things of spitballs, and we had this older lady. Back then, she looked 80. She was probably 50, like you just you never know. Like, good Lord. But anyway, she caught us, throwing spitballs at each other, and so she sent us out, and she said, "I'm going to send you down to." We had a vice principal, Mr. Vandergrift. That guy was 6'4", 340 pounds.
Oh Lord.
He was a monster, and she says, "I'm taking you down to him," and we're just going, "Oh my God, please, we're sorry, we won't ever do it again." Yada, yada. She's nope, we're going. So she took us down there, and he sat us down, and he said, "Well, you guys, you're gonna get 2 licks." We're just, the sweat's just pouring, go, "Oh, please, please." And he said, and I forget her name, Miss Colston, I think, I don't know. But he said, "I'm not going to paddle. I want you to paddle those boys." And we're thinking, oh my God, thank you, Lord. please, thank you. And I'm telling you, that lady lit us up. I'm telling you, we're going, holy cow, but I don't think it was anything like it would have been if Mr.
If he would've-
Vandergraff
yeah.
was. So that you and I have a similar story there.
Yeah. Well, listen, I had, and they don't love it when I talk about this, but I'll just tell you, Ginger Miller got me, Bill
Mhm.
Winters got me, Larry Osborne got me. Larry Osborne got me a couple times, but it was always for someone else. It was never
Oh.
for him.
Okay.
But Bill Winters hates it when I bring that up.
Yeah.
I'll tell people, yeah, Bill Winters whooped my butt a couple times,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Wow, Bill."
Oh yeah.
But Paul Ramsey snuck up on me, and
Yeah,
absolutely.
Paul, we
That's
were
the last
on
paddling I ever got at school.
we're on the credit union board together, and we still bring back old good memories of the days.
You tell him I haven't forgotten.
I'll,
He's not
I'll
going to remember.
I will tell him. I'll say you've got a good reputation with that.
Well, what was so funny is the whole 8th grade was lined up to go on a field trip, and I knew Bill Winters owed me a paddling.
Okay.
We'd already put down the sentence. We just hadn't got it done yet. And as the line is going by the office there, there was glass there in the front. You could see the door opens and an arm reaches out and just pulls me in. And it's Bill Winters. He said, "Come on back here." Well, here comes Mr. Ramsey, who I hadn't really dealt with him much. He was the head principal. He didn't deal with my discipline, my little stupid, didn't bring a pencil to school or whatever it was. And so Bill Winters was the witness, and Paul Ramsey caught hold of me. So I had to leave that and walk out that bus ramp, and all the boys knew what I'd just done, and I couldn't hardly walk straight.
Where'd you go to elementary?
I went Michigan Avenue K through 4, and then Black Fox 5th and 6th.
I was going to say, I knew you left because I had you at, how old were you?
I feel like as soon as I was in kindergarten, I knew who you were.
I remember you left or something. That reminds me.
Yeah, K through 4.
Okay.
Which for me would have been 1990.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyways, I didn't mean to disrupt your story. You just brought up Paul Ramsey, and I wanted to ask you, like, did people know this about him? Or
I don't know, but he'll be thrilled to hear it, though. It'll puff his chest up a little bit.
Oh, buddy, fired me. And listen, I'm a kid who got my dad took care of that most of the time.
Oh, I bet. I know your dad. Yeah, I could imagine your dad.
But I didn't want no more. Which is what made, when you get a kid that grows up getting butt whoopings, most of your teachers at school don't, give me the paddling.
Yeah.
You always opt for that.
Yeah.
But that changed my heart when Paul Ramsey caught hold of me. Anyways, you get to December.
So I get to December, and I hear there's going to be some PE openings in elementary school. They had decided to hire 3 people, and those 3 people would rotate around the elementary schools. And so Ann Guthrie at that time, she was the elementary supervisor.
Okay.
She's who I interviewed with, and so lucky got the job. 1 of 3. There was 2 others: Valerie Jordan, Melanie Armstrong. The 3 of us, we were the first elementary PE teachers in Bradley County.
Really?
Absolutely. And so our job was to, I think it was, we had 5 schools. Let's see, 4 to 5. There were a few more schools back then, but about 4 schools a year. So what we would do is we would rotate every 6 weeks. So we'd go to a school, and we would stay there 6 weeks. And then while we were there, we were to help teach teachers how to do PE in our absence, because they were wanting to grow it, but the teachers, they just pretty much just let them go outside,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we did what we could and, gave them some, it was tough because nobody had any equipment. It was ground zero. I mean, it was like we didn't have anything. And we would go to another school, and then, you might buy 1 or 2 things. And
I hate to ask a dumb question, but it's news to me that was the time when the first PE teachers were hired. So I have to ask, did everybody have a gymnasium at the elementary level?
Pretty much, yeah, because I was even at McDonald. And McDonald had a metal gymnasium, kind of like the old Waterville.
Yeah.
A lot of them had Oak Grove still has it.
Still has
Yeah,
one.
they still have it. I was at Oak Grove. And I got to work, the neat thing about it, I got to work under some great leaders, Mr. Montgomery, LeBron Montgomery, back in the days. He was at Blue Springs. I mean, he was probably the kindest soul you'll ever meet, probably one of the best principals I had. He would let you do your job, and just, great guy.
Did he come speak at my school later on? with snakes and
Oh yeah,
lizards?
yeah. That was one of his things.
I
About
don't know how I remember
reptilian.
that.
Yeah, reptilian. He would bring people, or he would even bring some things because that was his thing. He would come by and during gym, or we do it in
He
the
brought
gymnasium.
copperheads and
Yep, yep.
what's that stuff called? It's, he would take a copperhead and preserve it with
Oh, the formaldehyde.
well, no,
You talking?
it's like a
You talking about a live one?
no.
Okay.
This is a dead snake, but he would very quickly take like resin
Oh, okay. I
and
don't remember
encase
that.
it to where now he had just a beautiful, shiny, clear
Okay.
display. He could hand it to you, and it was a
But did he
whole.
not bring live ones too that were non-poisonous?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I'm thinking he loved to do, and he had spiders, and it was just his thing. He would go around as a safety thing. But I do remember that.
Is he still around?
No,
No.
he
Okay.
passed on. But Gerald Lillard was back then. Marvin Kirkpatrick served under. Roger Rowe at Oak Grove. David Holloway at Michigan Avenue. You were there then.
Yeah.
And who else? Darlene Bell was at McDonald.
Huh.
That was a unique place. I mean, the school was all wooden floors. Talking about a death trap. I thought, just like if that thing ever caught on fire, and I think that was its demise. It was the fire marshal just shut it down because they just felt that if it ever got caught on fire, it would be up in a flash.
Yeah,
because
and then I think asbestos was a word
it
that
probably
would
was.
come up. I can remember sitting in. I was sitting in class at Black Fox Elementary when they pulled the school buses up,
Oh,
and
really?
all them kids unloaded there.
Yeah.
And that's where we got. That's where Dawn Blackwell.
Okay.
You know
Yeah.
Dawn. She's at. It's Dawn Cox now. She
Okay.
married Jason Cox.
Yeah, I know Don. I knew Jason back because he and my wife grew up in the same area together.
Yeah. That's how we got her in our class. Was
Okay.
those
Yeah.
McDonald's kid.
Yeah, but it
kids
was.
came up.
I had some unique principles. Learned a lot from all of them. So I was there. I don't know how long that lasted, a year or two maybe, and then they hired 3 more. So we had 6. So that cut our 6 schools down to about 3 or 2, and then I ended up being at East Cleveland and Michigan Avenue were my 2 schools. So I was there 3 days a week at Michigan Avenue because it was a larger school, and then East Cleveland. I tell you, my heart grew fondly for East Cleveland.
Is that where Head Start used to be?
Yes.
I think I went to Head Start at East Cleveland.
A lot of kids just didn't have a lot, and my heart just sank. I'll tell you a funny story from East Cleveland. As a PE teacher, I didn't know a whole lot about things. I'm from Chattanooga. I didn't know a whole lot, but I was in the gym and we had this game, and they would all just cover me up and just, we just had a good time. And one of the teachers came in, Ms. Dunn, and she said, Mr. Riggs, you can't do that. And I said, well, what is it against the rules? What, why can't I do that? She said it in this way. She said, you're going to get those bugs. You're going to get those bugs. And I said, what kind of bugs? And she said, those bugs in your hair, you're going to get them all. And I didn't know what the heck she was talking about. I thought, what? So I went and asked Mr. Kirkpatrick. He said, yeah, it's lice. He said, what are you doing? He said, don't do that. So I went home. I thought, oh my God, what have I just done? But I mean, those kids, it was, they just were needy.
Yeah.
They needed father, or they needed a father fit. They needed, I love those kids, had them come without belts and their shirt, wearing their daddy's pants, and I just, man, my heart just it tears me up thinking about him now. Joseph was one kid that I remember that he never had anything. He couldn't speak well, but he'd come in his daddy's pants, and we found him a belt because he couldn't even play because he was having to hold his pants up. His shirt was, so we went and got him stuff. And, but you look back in those days, and that's why you're a teacher, because
Yeah.
just to help these kids, and that was a great school. Great school. I loved it. I think I started gaining my weight there because the cafeteria ladies took a likeness to me, and
Yeah.
they said, go back and get whatever you want to eat. I'm going, Lord, this is not good. After a year or so, I thought, man, I got to quit this,
Yeah. I remember one of the I don't know, when I look back on like the days that I was on patrol and I was in that area. The northeast part of the county is my area, but you stay in East Cleveland.
Yep.
And what started out as like oh, these people are rotten and rude, and once you get to know, I mean, because there's a time, Mr. Riggs, I could sit there on 2nd Street, and if a car came down that street, I could tell you what house it went to. Therefore, if a car came that didn't belong to a house, it stood out to me. Anyways, I got to know the families there and the people there, and I started to realize that like these people they're just as good-hearted as I am.
Absolutely.
They just have a different set of rules, and they're doing exactly what they think life is supposed to be. And so that was a big growing up for me to get to spend a lot of time over there. But even then, which that's 20 years later, you get the bugs over there.
Yeah. Jumping ahead a little bit, but we'll go back. But Bob Taylor was my principal, and he had a heart for kids like that. And he would tell people, because we had a lot of East Cleveland folks, and he would I would go with him on home visits, and I was blown away, But when you see what some of these kids lived in, didn't have anything, you just taught them differently. You had a different perspective when they came to your school, and it was the best thing ever, and I know Kim Fisher was great at that. A lot of principals do that now, but Kim had a heart of, for those kids, and to send her, she wanted those teachers to go see where their kids lived, and so you could get a different perspective on who you're teaching every day and have a little bit of compassion.
Yeah, and that's what it did for me was, that 20-year-old know-it-all that I had been, that thought we all wake up with the same air and opportunity every morning. It's not the whole truth.
That is not the truth.
It's not the whole truth. So that was good for me.
But it was a good experience. And then Michigan Avenue, after a while, they closed down East Cleveland, and I got to stay at Michigan Avenue. And it's probably when you were, I don't know the years you were there.
Like I said, if kindergarten, I would have been there in 1990, 89 or 90.
So I would have been there full time then. Yeah, because it was only a few years that we were splitting up, and so I was there full time. Was it Bob Taylor, or was it still David Holloway?
It would have had to still been David Holloway, because I can remember them walking Bob Taylor into my classroom. I just can't remember which classroom I was in. My memories. But they walked him in his blue button down and his tie, and introduced the new principal. And later on, I got to interview him as part of a little class project. I can remember he's from Maryville. Is that right? Maryland. Okay, I knew it was one of the two.
Yeah,
I got you. Maryland. Yeah, that was one of my questions. Where are you from? And now, 35 years later, I can't remember if it was Maryville or Maryland.
Maryland, yeah. Because David, Mr. Holloway, I'll tell you, he taught me so much. We just hit it off when I went there, and we were friends up until he passed. Now, David could get fired up on the baseball. I mean, any sports, you didn't dare sit with him, because he'd get through. You just didn't sit near him. But he was a great principal and taught me a lot about, before I even wanted to be a principal. It was he would cook he was the first principal I'd ever worked under that would cook steaks for his teachers. He took care of, that was his gift. He took care of teachers, and he would cook us dinner or lunch, and still see his girls to this day. Saw Mary, his wife, a few months ago. Talked to her a little bit, but just great friendships, And then Bob came in, and same with him, I thought, man, I don't know if I'm going to deal with this Yankee, this is Maryland and all that. But, and we had heard he was from a military school. You hear all these things when you're about to get a new principal, as a teacher, you're going, oh gosh, he's from a military school, and we're all going, oh geez, it's not going to be good.
Was that his first job in the district?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so, because he had come from there, and then he taught at Cleveland State, I think, and coached tennis there. But some of time in his life, he taught at military school.
Okay.
So anyway, but he got there, and it was totally different. Great guy, just did a lot of great things for Michigan Avenue. And that's where I started learning that I may not want to teach PE all my life. I don't know that I could physically do it all my life. But, So that's where we were with that.
Okay. What get me to a year-ish when you go straight from Michigan Avenue to principal at Hopewell?
I did.
What year
This
were we
was back in 95, about 95. I talked to Mr. Taylor. I called him then, Bob, but I said, I think I really want something else out of my life, maybe administration. And so he took me under his wing, and he allowed me to do schedules and sit in for him when he couldn't be there. So that was about a couple of years, doing that. And he just said, anything I can teach you, I will. So started doing that first, just to make sure that was something that I wanted to do. And now I'll tell you a few little areas of that time taught me so much, because it prepared. So many things happened during that time in my life at that school to prepare me to be a principal. One example, tornado tore through Blue Springs and Michigan Avenue area. Didn't hit Michigan Avenue, but it hit Chattanooga Valley down behind it. He was gone. He had some meeting or something, and he would always have me fill in for him,
Sure.
And that day that they called for that, and we were on alert, and sure enough, all the alarms went off, and get in the hallway, So we got everybody in the hallway, and I know Cherie. I don't know if you know Cherie Morgan. It was Cherie Chase, but she's still in the system.
Yeah, I know that name well.
DSL, Cherie, and she was teaching there. Dana Yost was teaching there. Elizabeth Kaler. So we were all, had them all in the hallway like we're supposed to. And then somebody asked me, where's Miss So-and-so, kindergarten teacher? I went, we're looking, and wasn't in there. So I thought, so you had to go outside to get to the kindergarten pods, those portables.
Yeah, I was about to ask if they were still separate.
Yeah, it was portables back there close to the cafeteria. And she was still in there. She didn't hear the alarm or anything. So I go out, and I said, we got to get out of here. We got to get in the school. So we go, And we're all, you have to go through the cafeteria, and then we go through the main
Was
hallway.
Miss Rutledge still there?
Yeah, it was. I'm not going to name who it
No,
was.
you
I
don't-
don't remember
okay,
who it
okay,
was.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have no idea. I truly can't remember who it was.
Okay.
But we started in, and it was, if you remember, it was a sidewalk to, they had rooms to the on the sidewalk. They were open rooms, and then you go sidewalk, and then you get to the main building,
Mm-hmm.
and then on the other end was the cafeteria, and so we had to walk through there. And when we did, it was like the thing was on top of us because leaves were just flying, and we were getting them in the building as quick as we could. And I made it, get down, everybody get down, and so that threw people into a little bit of a panic because now they know, oh gosh, it's real. And a few teachers went and hid under desk, and it was.
What are you, 30 years old at this time?
Oh yeah, probably 30, 32. But Bob, and his wisdom, he came. He said, "Golly, Tim, I'll leave you for a little while." He said, "All helter skelter comes in." And I said, "You don't even start with me, 'cause it would always happen, would things happen." And he would just he said, "Hey, it's just a learning experience." But that it truly was a learning experience.
I bet.
Yeah. But that was just one of few things that that was the one everybody talks about, that are still in the system. We have good memories of that one.
Now, who left Michigan Avenue first, you or Mr. Taylor?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. So we go on, and I start interviewing. Me, Kevin Raper. I can't remember anybody else, but there was like 4 or 5 of us. I mean, everywhere we went, we were all together, to interview for the same. All of us wanted a principal's job.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started interviewing different places. I remember Bill Winters. He and I talk about it to this day. I didn't really want to be a middle school principal. I felt like my heart was elementary. But Bob told me, he says, "You can't be choosy. You got to go interview everywhere. And wherever you land, that's where you land." I said, "Golly, dumb, okay."
But you pretty much always wanted elementary school.
I just always wanted elementary. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
I did student teaching in PE with middle school, but I didn't really want to be there, because I knew assistant principal, you're just going to deal with discipline all day long, mainly. And I wanted to be more than that. But
yeah.
So I interviewed under Bill Winters, and my heart wasn't in it. My interview, he said, and he and I went back for a long way. He knew my dad. We went back, and he says, "You really don't want this job, though, do you?" I said, "Well," I said, "Is it that obvious?" He started laughing. I said, "Well, I was told I had to interview everywhere." And I said,
"Yeah."
I said, "Probably." I said, if and I shot myself in the foot that I wasn't about to get it, but so Ron Spengler ended up getting that job.
Yeah. And he was coming from Charleston?
I can't probably. I know he was at Charleston, I think, and so he got that job. And
that's my 8th grade year.
Yep.
No, that's my 9th grade year, because I think he came when Patrick and Jason had just went to high school.
Okay.
And they were a year ahead of me. Keep going. I'm just placing.
No, he's so he gets that. So we're still interviewing, and so we're about out of schools. We're going, well, I guess. And then all of a sudden, Randall Ferguson, who was the principal at Hopewell, golly, I'm going to lose his name now. Anyway, someone at, I hate to die, you'll get this way one day, but but he was at the secondary level, and he left. Herb Cannon.
Okay.
Herb Cannon was a secondary supervisor. So he got hired on at Lee. So they hired Randall Ferguson to take his spot, which opened Hopewell. So here we all go, start interviewing again. And at those days, it was David was the superintendent. He'd left Michigan Avenue. He was a superintendent.
Uh-huh.
So when you had a superintendent, they were elected. So the board voted who to hire for principal and teachers. The superintendent did. So yeah, it was back in those days. You had to have 4 votes from the board
Okay.
to be hired.
Did the board interview you?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
there were not all of them. There were like 2 board members. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Mr. Holloway and 2 board members, and I don't know who all. Well, of course, Ann Martin, Guthrie Martin was in there.
Is that a law thing, or is that just a way to protect the elected official a little
I guess
bit?
that's when you're a superintendent. That's just the way things were. I don't know.
Okay.
That was my beginning of my career in that. So I only worked under a superintendent for a year or so. But anyway, I interviewed with all those people. There were like 7, 8 people in there. And it was very intimidating.
Yeah.
But I had interviewed so many times. I knew the questions. I mean, it was like second nature. You can only interview so many times. They can't. There's only so many questions they can ask you.
Yeah.
So I felt great about it. And I was in Mr. Taylor's office one afternoon. Phone rings, and he says, "Hey, Tim," he says, "Mr. Holloway wants you talk to you." And I said, "Okay." So I went over there and talked to David and on the phone, and he said, "Well, I've got you 4 votes." And I said, "Well, so what does that mean?" He says, "Well, it means you're new principal at Hopewell." And I went, "Are you kidding me?" Like the realism hit me. I'm going, oh, golly,
Yeah.
So Bob Taylor looked at me and said, "What?" And I said, he said, "I got 4 votes." He said, "You're in." And I asked Dave, I said, "Why don't I have 6 or 7 votes?" Yeah, I said, "What the heck?"
You just want it
He
all.
said, "I'm working on it. I'm working on it." He said, he said, I've got you 4. That's all we need. And I said, "Well, all right." So you start thinking, who the heck doesn't want you? On the board. I didn't know all these board members. But anyway, so the rest was history. I don't know what my final count was. I think I finally got 7, maybe not 6. But
Still a single fella at this time?
yeah.
Okay.
No. Let's see. No. I was married. I'm sorry. I skipped a lot of that.
All right, I got to edit that part then.
Yeah, I skipped a lot of that because we were talking about school stuff.
Yeah, no, I got you.
But anyway, I'll stop there and we can go back. But
Yeah, we can press. Can we press pause there
Sure.
and you just talk me through?
Yeah. Met my wife at Michigan Avenue Gym. Back in those days where we were teaching, teachers how to do PE. We saw this beautiful dark-haired girl sitting in the bleachers, a teacher. They're all teachers out there, and just caught my eye. I didn't know her, had no clue, but so did an in-service. Back then we did in-service for them and, gave them some ideas on what to do. But so I had a mutual friend that taught with me, and she said, "Hey," she said, "you remember a teacher that was out there?" And I'm there. She said, "Dark-headed." And I said, "Well," and then she showed me a picture, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "I remember seeing her." She said, "Well, would you like to go out with her?" I said, "What?" And she, "Yeah." So anyway, I don't know how it all got, but she introduced us.
Okay.
And so we went out and hit it off, and got married a year later. And so we met in the gym. Well, that's where we first saw each other. We didn't actually meet in the gym,
Yeah.
but yeah, we got married in '88 at her church, New Friendship on Chattanooga Valley Road. It's an older church.
Oh, it's beautiful camp.
Yeah, it's
out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Small wedding. I had I said small wedding. I had like 7 guys. She had 7 ladies. But it was a small church.
Huh.
And married 5 years before we had Bryson.
Yeah.
And And then
Did y'all attend out there after you got
we
married?
didn't.
Yeah.
I was a church God boy. She
Yeah.
was Baptist girl. So it was so different out there. Great people. I mean, fantastic people, but it was just not what I was used to.
Sure.
I was used to, at least clapping and, I didn't, raise your hand or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's none of that out there. It was very, quiet. So then I took her to Lee to a convocation, freaked her out. She's, they started running the aisles and she said, no, I can't handle this. She said, so we were trying to find a happy medium, so we ended up going to Westwood Baptist.
Yeah.
And they raised their hand and clapped, and I'm thinking, okay, all right, I could probably handle this. And
Yeah, there's a middle ground.
so we joined there a little after we got married, 88, 99, and been there ever since.
Huh.
So and then had Bryson in 94, and had just one kid,
Yeah.
good boy. He's been proud of him ever since.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
That's
good
kind
dude.
of catch you up with how we met and all that. But
Yeah.
and Sherry was a teacher at North Lee for 30-something years. She actually had probably more years than I did in after we got all said and done. But she taught first grade, fourth grade, and third grade, and then she ended her career as an instructional coach there.
Huh.
At North Lee, all her years in North Lee.
Very good. Very nice. All right, so I think we can get there now because like I said before, I think most of the people that hear this are going to be people that connected with you through Hopewell Elementary School. I would imagine. How many years total are you going to do at Hopewell?
19.
19 years, and that's starting in the late 90s?
99.
99.
Yep.
All right. So what's it like? You get told, hey, you have X amount of votes. You end up getting, sounds like unanimously or almost unanimously. What's the first order of business there? How do you?
Well, like I said, I had learned from some great leaders going back in my PE days, and just got to see how to treat people, teachers, LeBron Montgomery, how he just treated people, and David Holloway, just so that was ingrained in me, So my first order of business, of course, going out to the school, Randall showed me that's Adam Ferguson's daddy.
I grew up in church with those folks.
So Randall took me around and showed me around the school and introduced me to people and so forth. And then he went over to Central and I took over. But that summer, I wanted to make sure that I met every teacher and every employee. So that summer, it took a lot of time, but I met with every teacher for an hour. That was my goal, an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And during that conversation, of course, I wanted to get to know them, their family, who they had kids, and then I wanted to know what they liked about Hopewell and what they didn't. And if they wanted to change, if something were to change, what would it be? And so that really enlightened me as far as, okay, it gives me a little roadmap on because they all tell you, and I tell folks that I work with now, don't go in and make changes right off the bat. You just learn the business.
Yeah.
So I took that to heart, except for the next year. Usually a year you just kind of learn the school community. Then the next year I started making changes, that aesthetically I just wanted to put my fingerprint on the school, of what I thought a school ought to be, a place to brighten it up and just to do some things that had some old murals. It was one of those areas you navigate. You don't want to make anybody mad. So
Sure.
I learned from the best. You go slow.
Mm-hmm.
So there were some old murals on the wall. I mean, dark, just dark color, and they had been there for quite a while. And so the first thing I asked teachers, I said, "Who did those murals?" And they said, "Well, a parent did." And I said, "Oh, yeah, well."
Oh man.
But I said, Are they still here? The kids still? Oh no, they've gone. I said, okay. I said, is there any reason why? Am I going to make anybody mad, families or whatever, if I start slowly covering these up? And they'd been gone for 5 years or whatever. So
Huh.
I thought that would be a opportune time to just make some changes that I thought needed to be made. So I started painting walls and on the summer and just changing things. And had my custodian paint. So we started slowly changing, some things.
Yeah. How do you first of all, I think it's brilliant to not come in and just start hacking everything, take a year. But how do you, and I know that you advise principals now, and a lot of times you interim for principals. How do you, how do you maintain those fresh eyes over that year to not lose some of that sort of outside looking in perspective? And does that make sense to you? Because one of my fears would be if, say, I'm a young principal and you're coaching me, I'm going to listen to you and I'm not going to come in and immediately start hacking things. But also, I'm going to want to keep good notes or something of things that I see, because a year later, it might become, let's just keep this and keep that. And next thing you know, this school has not changed.
Yeah.
Everything's the same.
Yeah. Well, after your first year, you learn a lot. And I tell these folks that I mentor now, your first year, you're just running on adrenaline. You don't really know what's going on. You're just trying to figure it all out and not make a mistake and not get fired your first year as a principal. You just do whatever you can. But then after that first year, it's like driving a car. When you first get in it, a new car, you're okay. But then all of a sudden, man, you don't even know it. You're in it and going. So the second year, I started really my biggest change, which probably caused some controversy with some parents that have been there a while. But I felt so passionate about it because I heard the heart of teachers. And when I heard the heart of teachers who had been there many years, and it was one of the changes that they wanted made, was anybody could pick anybody they wanted to as for a teacher, as far as their kids. And so what I'd heard was that you go in a certain time, if you had a popular teacher, they're going to get, everybody wanting in there, but you can't put everybody in there.
No.
So what I'd heard from teachers were that, some teachers, maybe weren't the most popular, but they were good teachers, got kids that were more behavior problems, academically challenged, whereas that other teacher got all the cream of the crop, and back in those days you had test scores, you still do, and you had to kind of you wanted everybody to be a great teacher, but that wasn't realistic. You had some teachers you're working with, and you're going to help them become great teachers. So I wanted to make sure that there was equality there. So the next year I started. I talked to my board member. That was the first thing I did. I said, I need to talk to you because I'm about to do something that you're probably going to come back at me and talk to the superintendent, David, or it was David at that time. And he said, do what you need to do. I got your back. So So anyway, I made some changes, and instead of just allowing them to pick just one teacher, I let them pick 3. And so they could choose. There were 14, and most of them were 4 or 5 teachers I had back then.
Uh,
So they got to pick 3 that they would be okay with, and if they didn't really want somebody, they could not choose that one, and I would honor that.
sure.
So I did that for a few years, and so that was a lot of the.
You ever have a teacher you just never saw their name on those papers?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, but it wasn't. I found out that they were good people, good teachers. It was just they weren't popular. They weren't.
Sure.
It's kind of like back when we were in high school. Just you had popular people. That didn't mean they were great people. They were just popular. So
Yeah.
it was my job to make sure if a teacher needed to get better in an area, to work with them through the evaluation stuff. And so I got to befriend Trish Coggin, Danny Coggin's wife, and she was the first teacher I ever met from Hopewell when I got the job. They told me that the PTO were having a big shindig at Johnson Park downtown. And I said, well, it'd be a good time for me to just go meet people, So I went. She was the first teacher I ever met. Now, I knew Danny.
Yeah.
Because I would see him when I taught PE at Michigan Avenue. You probably remember him coming and doing band if you did band. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, I had, by the time I got wind of this, I was at Black Fox, and I had Alan Hunt.
Okay.
He
So
would come down
Alan
there.
did the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
So Danny did it at most of my schools that I was at.
Mhm.
But anyway, I knew Danny and didn't really know Trish that well. But I met her and helped her. I think she was selling something. So I just said, hey, how can I help? So she introduced me to a lot of people. So she ended up being one of the teachers that I really trusted to tell me, give me the pulse of the school. I need to know what's going on. I
She
need
give
to
you
know.
a straight answer.
And Trish was great. She just say, come in, shut the door. And I said, oh Lord, what's going on now? But she would tell me, and I appreciated that from her. And I had others that I would do that with as well. But so that was pretty much it. And then after I did all that, then you start rocking and rolling. You start learning the school. You start seeing what to do with kids and teachers. And
Did you look across the county for ideas as a
oh,
new principal?
absolutely. Back then, Charlie Smith was the principal at Prospect. Charlie and I would go to places, to learn how to become better organized. I wasn't the greatest organized person, and so he wasn't either. So he and I went to these conferences in Chattanooga, But you would learn from other principals. We had principal meetings from David Holloway first, and they would be, about teaching you things or giving you ideas, and I would pick those principals' brains while I was there. Most of them were men.
Yeah.
You had maybe one that, but yeah, you just kind of learned on your own. You just
Yeah.
kind of did it.
Of course, I'd say you had a pretty good. I mean, I don't want to forget that you were sort of mentored by Bob Taylor at Michigan.
Yeah,
Avenue.
yeah.
So I'd say that's pretty helpful.
Yeah, and I could call him.
Yeah.
Even David Holloway, he was my superintendent, but he would come over. I remember him coming over when I first got there, and I told him, I said, God, I don't even have any sidewalks here. I said, can you help me? I don't know how all this works. I didn't know how capital outlay worked and all that.
Yeah.
He says, tell me what you need. He said, we'll see if we can make it work. So he gave me new sidewalks in the front of the school. We never had sidewalks.
Huh.
It was just, and those kids were, I was afraid somebody's going to get hit. It's just,
Yeah.
but he came over, and Bob was, Herbert Lackey, I'd call him, and I was a little intimidated by Mr. Lackey, and, because
Just because of who he was?
He was just Mr. Lackey. Yeah. You just, but he would help me with anything, David Robinson and all those guys that I'd worked under occasion, now I was a colleague, and they were all great. Kenny Phillips. I went to Kenny for technology needs. I didn't have a clue about security and technology needs. And Kenny was the technology guru, and he taught me about, hey, you need this and this. And so,
Huh. Now, was there any element for you, like when I think of like, okay, I'm this 32, 34-year-old guy. I've just been handed this principalship at a school. Am I having to follow Saban here? Because when I think about it, I'm like, I would not want to follow Tim Riggs. I would not want to follow Jeremy Jones. I would not want to follow Bob Taylor. You know what I'm saying? What's that like? Because these principals in these communities, Kim Fisher is the vice mayor of the Black Fox community.
I tell you, Kim, I got a lot of advice from Kim, and I watched Kim. All you had to do is watch Kim. She had the heart of gold, and still does. Like she hasn't lost it. But when those kids were number one, and I saw that, and I thought, man, it goes back to my McDonald days, but yeah, you don't try to outdo anybody. You learn from them, and then you create your own school culture that you feel like is where it needs to be. And I always heard this, that a school takes on its principal. It becomes part of who they are, and their personality. And you could see that when Danny took over here, when he started this school. That's just, he expected this and that. And Jeremy the same way at Valley View, and a few other things. So it just, it takes on the personality of the leader. It really does. And I can see that since I'm mentoring these principals. I can see the change, when I go in there. But you do what you need to do, and you learn from it, and you start. As far as my weakness goes, of course, my weakness is coming from PE, and then having to evaluate teachers. I'm thinking, holy cow.
Teaching math and science. And
and back in those days, we didn't evaluate like we do now. We did the old-fashioned way. Was, I think, a teacher got evaluated twice in 10 years or something. It was so when I got there, Mr. Ferguson showed me, he said, here's the paperwork. You got to go in these teachers' classrooms, and you fill out this paperwork and talk to them, and that's it. Good Lord, So you're talking about an intimidation factor. And we didn't have coaches back then, instructional coach. We didn't have anything.
Ugh.
And so what I did to compensate for that is I opened up to my teachers. I said, but back in those days, Matt, you didn't have what you have now. You have to be evaluated 4 to 8 times now.
Yeah.
Back in those days, once or twice in 5 years or so. So it wasn't anything like it is now. So
it was scheduling those, or are you just popping in?
Oh yeah, I schedule. Oh yeah, you schedule them, and I had it organized, and to where I'd go in, see who needed more than they did, or if they'd been left off for some reason. So Trish Coggin she said, "Damn, I haven't been evaluated in a while, so you can start with me." And I said, "Okay," and but I told them at the beginning, I said, no, I don't know instruction like you guys do. I said, but I'm not going to watch you do. I'm going to watch how you interact with these kids. And I'm going to watch what you do to, help them learn a skill, about it. So that's the philosophy I started taking, and then we went to the project coach, and it was different. It gave you more of a script. It gave you more of a rubrics where you could read and know what to look for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was interesting. That was my weakness. And then, I don't know. I'm just the way I am, but I wanted to know where my weakness was with teachers. So after my first year, I did a survey, and I wanted to know where I needed to grow.
Uh-huh.
I was evaluated by David Holloway and them, but that's different. They don't know. They're not there with you,
Sure.
But so I knew the teachers knew my weakness. They could figure it out real quick.
Yeah.
So I did a survey my first year, and buddy, they cut me to shreds on communication. And it wasn't that, how I spoke, or it was that I would just not think about them, and I would schedule things right at just like it's going to happen tomorrow. They needed time to plan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So when I got that survey back, I mean, it was 90%. You don't need, and I'm communication. I'm like, holy cow. So I sat with them when we started school back, and I said, all right, guys, I need to know how I need to improve. We didn't have email back then. It was like, so you didn't really, you just communicated however you could, so they told me that
Working on memos here.
yeah, you just do things too quick, and we don't have time to plan. And I said, so how much time do you need?
Yeah.
Well, a week could be great. So I took that to heart, and I never did it again. And I found email. And when I found email and discovered email, then started doing that. And they told me it got a lot better. So, but you have to continually learn as a principal or a teacher, anybody. But a lot of people don't like to do that because they're afraid of what the negativity will be. But that's how you grow. And I tell these new principals all the time. I say, guys, yeah, you're going to get, if you've got thin skin, you can need to thicken it up, because they're gonna tell you. Now, you don't look at the ones that have something against you or that are mad at you for
just the random outlier negative.
Yeah, the outlier thing. But if
Yeah.
you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 commonalities,
Yeah.
then you better pay attention.
Yeah.
And I tell these new principals that all the time. But yeah, after that, you just learn, and you just keep going. You change the school to what you think it needs to be, and I changed the school for 19 years.
Yeah.
To change things about it. And,
So you go from first year principal just trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And I'd say you blink your eyes and you got kids graduating high school.
Yep.
Coming back, walking through the hallways.
Yep.
And that happened a lot for you.
Yeah, it did.
For several years.
It did.
Where's your last class at right now?
My last class?
Let's say
When I retired, you mean?
Yeah, like your last
It was 18, so those kids have long, it's been 8 years, and they were been 8 years ago, so they're what, 18, 19, 20?
you have some graduates in that
27.
group, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Had some come back. I go every year to Hopewell to see the senior walk. Still have. Yes, I went a few weeks ago when we had it.
So your kindergartners may be in high school now.
Well, yeah, like when I go next year, those kids will be my third graders when I left my last year.
Yeah.
So in 2-3 more years, those kids won't have a clue who I am, but they don't now really. When I go over to Hopewell, they don't have a clue who I am. But those kids, that are seniors, that are 11th graders this year, were my third grade. So next year they'll be my third grade.
Yeah.
So, and after that, I won't have any more. They'll all be gone. It'll all be gone. But it's great to see them back. I wasn't really going to go this year, but my daughter-in-law, who teaches here, she told me, she said, some of my kids are asking if you're going to be back. And I said, what? What grade were they? Because I didn't remember. I thought, man, I'm done. Because I was just going with 5th grade. Who was my last 5th? She said, well, they were your 4th graders when you left. And I said, well, I guess I better get back there.
Yeah, I'd say you're pretty safe. I mean, I just remember LeBron Montgomery having met him one time when I was in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
So you're a little more than that.
It's to see them come back, and they'll come up and give you a hug, and just to see their faces and, how they've changed. And it's amazing.
So You sort of gave me just a glimpse into I don't want to call it mundane, but like I'm learning to communicate. This is the feedback that teachers are giving me, all of these kind of things. Now I got to come over there. Let's see, when would this have been? You remember when I was on patrol and I came over and filled in a couple days at SRO?
At Hopewell?
Yeah.
Lord, I don't remember.
Well, it was like
but
I said,
remember you coming.
It was just a day or two. That was my first glimpse into an elementary school as an adult, and just the office. Now I may have been there on the perfect day, but the office wasn't busy.
Yeah.
Everything was.
You remember who the SRO was that you filled in for?
I think it was Mitchell.
Okay.
I think it was Mitch. I think Marshall had already gone.
So that was some of my later years, you know.
Okay. Yeah. You're at this time you were the seasoned.
Yeah.
You were the seasoned pro. You were.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this, and if you want to punch me in the face for bringing this up, I'm sorry, but I want to hear, because I saw just in a couple days that, like it or not, you're sort of the nucleus of a big thing happening here that reaches out into a community. And I can remember somewhere around that time, you lost a little boy in a swimming pool. Actually,
2. He and his sister.
He and his sister both. That's right.
Twins.
What's it like to be that guy in that community in those circumstances?
Well, I'd had in my career there, I had lost 4 kids. One to a heart. That was when I first got there. Another one, brain tumor. And then, drowned in the pool. My wife and I were at dinner in Chattanooga. Cheddar's. Never will forget it. We'd gone down to Chattanooga. And Mitch calls me and he says, Tim, where are you at? And I told him, he said, well, I hate to bother you right now. He said, but I just need to tell you, we've had an accident, some of the kids, and I thought it was a wreck, and, thinking, oh gosh, and he told me that, and special kid, I mean, he was in my office all the time. He was a Matt Paris, evidently, because, telling me you got paddled so much. So
it wasn't that.
But he was, but I loved him to death because he just never saw his daughter or his sister, though. She was sweet as she could be. But anyway, he said they've drowned, and I just, I said, what? And he said they went to the neighbor's pool, and it was closed. And but they got, I don't know what they went. I can't even remember what they went after, dog or something.
I think it was a dog.
And he says they couldn't get out, and it was the old dungy, the water, the black, just. And I said, I'll be right there, So Sherry and I took off. She didn't know what in the world's going on. I told her, but yeah, I mean, you can't prepare yourself for that ever, and losing a kid. The other 2, you never want to lose kids, but it's kind of like your parents when they have cancer. My dad died of cancer, so I had him 3 years before he died. But the Lord prepares you to try to deal with the imminent loss that you're going to face. So those other 2 kids, you hope that they would be healed, but you just knew that one day maybe they would leave this earth. But when it's a tragic accident like that,
when they're well one day,
yeah, you just So when it's all said and done, the thing I'll have to give kudos to Sheena Newman. Sheena was our supervisor for many years, and Sheena, talking about a heart of gold, I called her told her what was going on, and I'm telling you, she had. It's ironic because he's my son's in-laws right now. Sorry, but he Miss Winters, principal's always. uh, but he lost my train of thought now.
Your son's in-laws?
Yeah, he was one of the counselors. She called Lee University and had them bring their counselors who taught psychology. So Bryson's father-in-law came and one of the ladies and met with our faculty after school. We met for an hour and a half, 2 hours, just the healing process. It's just like, golly bum, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sheena, she knew exactly what we needed, and she got them there, and then they told us what to do from there. As a principal, I didn't know how to handle that. I was struggling like the teachers were. I was a basket case too, and so Sheena knew I needed someone just to take it off me, so she, and then Mitch was, golly bum. I can't say enough good things about Mitch. He and I were so close, but he was hurting too, because that's
yeah.
one of our students. So anyway, we got through that, but it takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
We had a balloon release. The faculty did. That's what they suggested. So we had some red balloons, our favorite colors. We all went out there, and we had Mr. Gibson from Canish Creek, Pastor Gibson, come over, and he prayed for us and spoke, and we had released the balloons, or balloons, 2 balloons.
Yeah.
So it was.
Was Mason Cobble one of yours?
Yes.
Is that your?
Well, that's another. Mason didn't pass on there.
It was later on.
But it was later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mason was one of ours. Great kid, great kid. Saw him when he was here, his parents. But yeah, it's never easy, Matt. Just as you're in law enforcement, I tell my son all the time. I said, I don't know how in the world y'all do it. I don't want any part of it. I just, man, I'm for happiness in the school. Let's do some fun things, but that's just part of it. You all have had so many tragedies here at Walker Valley.
Sure.
It's just like, golly, and Bradley and the middle schools. Oh,
yeah, but that's my first days here, kids would ask me, okay, so you were a detective at the sheriff's office? Yeah. Why did you become a teacher? And it's so hard to explain to them that like this, I love this. I love this craft. I love that.
And you're good at it because they love you. I've heard, I keep hearing, Bryce and I had talked about it, and I said, I tell you, it's so beneficial to have you and people like you in that position, to talk to these kids, these young adults, but they love your class, and I know you do a lot with them.
Well, I appreciate it. But what I was trying to explain to the kids was I loved being a detective. I loved working cases, but there comes a time when, first of all, I wanted to do this. It wasn't that I didn't want to do that, but part of what you gain is that I don't have to. I can remember days. Speaking of Mitch Rowe, I remember we were on patrol shift one time. Everything was hunky dory. We were all cutting up, having a good time, stopping cars, answering calls. We'd bump into each other once, and like that, Mitch gets a call and has to go respond to where a kid got hit by a bicycle. Yeah. Just bam, sunshiny day, everything's fine. Yeah. And now, Mitch, you just going home, because he did his job. Yeah. We get the kid recovered or whatever, but like the day's instantly different. Yeah. You can't recover from that immediately. Yeah. So, I couldn't explain to these high school kids, like, there's a time for that for me, and I feel like that time's over, and I want to be here. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, but I can't imagine being, an elementary school principal, because like I said, I was there just long enough to see that, like, if there is an issue here, Mr. Riggs is the issue handler. So you have a whole community that sort of
Yeah.
leans on you, and I'd say you lean back on them too.
Oh, absolutely. I tell you, I couldn't have asked for a better. We got great community in Bradley County, but I only knew the Hopewell community. I don't know the other communities that well, other than where I live, and that's this community now. But Hopewell community, aside from my first couple of years where I kind of made a few people upset a little bit of my changes things, but after that, we're great friends and we became great friends. But and I had my battles, with people, but at the end of the day, those are few and far between. The people I see now, parents that I see that come back to the senior walk, we hug each other. It was a great experience. There's nothing like the elementary school. I don't know anything about the high school or middle school principalship. I told Dr. Jones that earlier. I said, I never wanted to be a principal of a high school or middle school, just elementary. And greatest job ever. Greatest job ever. I mean, it has its problems. But when you have those little kids, like I call them knee huggers. They'll come up and they'll grab your knees, especially my kindergartners, and and just they're always, when you walk in the room, they're just like, oh wow. I don't know what it's like in the high school world, but they're probably thinking, oh, they're coming after me. But in the elementary world, they love seeing their principal come into the classroom.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it. And I had CDC classes that, the challenge, mentally challenged students, and when I had a bad day, I would make a beeline to those classes.
Huh.
Because those kids, I mean, it didn't matter they didn't have bad days. They would just hug on you, love on you, and make things, and you just go to that world and just, get happy again.
Yeah.
But
Now, 2018, do you just retire or did you go to the district?
2018, I actually, let's just talk 2017. I started, thinking that I may be at my end. I would talk to my wife and I would say, I'm not as happy as I used to be. I'm just, and I don't want to be that person that stays over my welcome, that I become somebody I really am not, and when you're not happy as you were, you start changing. People can see it.
How old's Bryson at this point?
Let's see, 18. Lord, I don't know. He's 20. What? He's 32 now, so 8 years from there.
So he's early 20s.
So he's early 20s, and so I started talking to my wife, and in 17. I told her, I said, I need you to help pray with me. I'm thinking I might be needing to retire. And she said, let's just calm down and let's wait, talk about it.
So are you saying it that way because that's different than what you had pictured before?
Yeah. Well, everybody always told me you'll know when it's time to retire. People that have retired said you will know.
Okay.
I thought I knew. And that last year, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go another year. Let's just make sure. And I started getting a little more irritable. Just things, bothered me more than usual. So that second year, my last year, I just told my wife, I said, I think this is it. I've been there 19 years.
That's a pretty long run.
I didn't know what else to do at the school. I had changed walls. everything that I saw that I could do, we were fortunate to do. I was losing sight. I was losing my vision of the school because I didn't know what else to do. And as a leader, people just 19 years, Lord have mercy, but so anyway, I didn't know what else to do. There was no more to that school I could do, and I just wasn't really happy, much anymore. So I told my wife, I said, I'm going to meet with Dr. Cash, and I'm going to just share my heart with her. It's just the way I am. So I met with her probably February-ish. February 1, and I just told her, I said, I just need to know from you, am I still effective as a leader? And she said, by all means, absolutely. And I said, well, I shared my heart. I said, I don't know that I'm happy anymore, that I'm just losing my zest. And I tell you, Matt, I prayed that the Lord would open up and just to reassure me that's what I'm supposed to do, because that's a big step. I was
Sure.
58 years old. What do you do at 58? I'm at 33 years in, and I'm 58. I don't know what else,
And it's not like you can just change your mind next year.
No, heck no. Once you do it, buddy, you're in. And so I talked to her, and I'd asked the Lord, I said, just help me figure this out. And I tell you, it is like when I went in to meet with her, we talked, and she said, well, I don't want you to retire, but she says, if you feel like you need to, she said, I would love for you to be a mentor to new principals. And I just kind of looked at her. I said, I don't know what that job is. She said, well, it's not a job yet. She said, I want a mentor for new principals. She said, if you retire, I want you to do it. And I said, are you kidding me? And I said, well, I don't even know what is this entail? She said, what's a contract? And I said, what is a contract? I don't even know what a contract was. I'd lived in that principal world for so long. And she told me, she says 120 days. She said, you'll go talk to the finance people and they'll tell you about money and all that stuff. But anyway, she said, she said, I'll promise you 2 years because I want you to work with them 2 years. And I said, okay. I said, so she said, well, I'll help you. We'll figure out what you're going to talk with them about or work with them about and all that. So I said, okay. Well, that's a dream come true. I'm a principal and I love my job.
Were you just an answer to her prayers at that
I
point?
think we both were, her prayers, my prayers, that's the way the Lord works. But
She probably had a stable full of new principals to be.
that was the thing. We didn't realize that. I think, of course, she knew I would be replaced,
Yeah, sure.
So she said, well, I want you to go home and talk to Sherry. And if you decide to retire, she said, that's what I want you to do.
Mm.
So I went in and talked to Susan, the finance director. I said, tell me about it. She said, you're going to be fine money. She said, monetary. She said, you'll be making quite a bit, and I'm thinking, well, okay. I said, okay. So after that, I went home, talked to Sherry, and Dr. Cash said, let me know in about a week or so. I called her that next morning, and I said, I'm out. She said, you sure? I said, I'm out. She said, okay. She said, I don't want you telling anybody. And this was like 2 months. She said, until after testing, TCAP's over. And I went, holy cow. You know how the county is. Nothing like that doesn't get out.
Sure.
And I said, well, Dr. Cash, if it gets out, I got to go talk to my faculty. She said, I agree. She said, but let's just see if it. So I was very secretive and went on till April. And the first person I told was June Wooden, my secretary, and my administrative assistant. She and I have been together a long time. And after school one day, she was leaving. I said, hold on a minute. I was on the phone. So I got in her car. And she said, what's up? And I said, well, I'm just letting you know, I'm retiring. And she start crying, and I start crying. I said, it's just meant to be. And and the next day, because I knew I was going to talk to the teachers the next day, and that next day I met with the faculty and told them, and but I felt good about it. The thing that I worried more, and that retirees do worry, that when you leave your community and your family community like that, that's going to be hard. And it would have been, me just to stop and leave all those teachers that I loved. And but with this contract, I was able to stay connected. And
Yeah, because I mean, we're not talking about career choices anymore. We're talking about the idea of meaning.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
you have to have a
age.
purpose.
Yeah,
you still have to have a purpose. That was my new purpose. And so that first year, she hired 4 principals. Your principal being one of them. So he was my first mentee. Heather Hayes, Dr. Hayes, Erica Shamlin, and Robbie Winters.
There you go.
Those were my first 4 principals to work with, and we had a ball. We had a ball. I mean, we had a ball. I had them over to my house after the first year. We had a swim party and brought the kids. But it was just to get to be with those principals and see them mature and just be a voice. I was there for them anytime. I said, I am yours 24/7. You call me, that's my job. And I met with them several times a month. And we had different things we went over through the whole year. But Jeremy will tell you, he'd kid around with him. He said, every time you come see me, something happens. The fire marshal's coming. And I said, well, that's just to prepare you, Jeremy,
Yes.
of what's going on. But he said, Lord have mercy. And some other things happen, but I won't go into detail there. But he just says, he said, Lord, every time. I said, hey, now you're good and ready. But it's a great time. But I've been doing that. She said 2 years. Matt, this is my 8th year.
8th year. Now you do some interim work too?
I do. Well, my job has changed. When I first got the job, it was just mentor, But I told her, and she didn't ask me to do this. I just told her, I said, now, if you need someone to sub for principals, she was so thankful, and Dr. Cash was, to have an experienced principal just go in and just, go and not to worry about anything. So I've done that. When COVID, I was everywhere. I mean,
I bet.
Because, you just sneeze and you're out for 2 weeks,
2 weeks,
and it was crazy. But
how do you approach that? You go in and you find that Holly Black or that June Wooden, and you say, hey, what can I do?
Yep. I got to know all these administrative assistants.
Well, they're the heart of a school, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And I took them treats and I took them everything. But because I just went in to keep the ship right. I wasn't there to do anything. It was a great thing.
Make sure it stays pointed true.
And just a support for teachers. And so I got to know all these administrative assistants. So to this day, I can go to the schools and give them all hugs, and we're good. I still do it occasionally. My last one was at Michigan Avenue for a day or two. So
yeah.
But so that's part of it. Then the other job, so now it's turned into 3. As I took over 2 years ago, Robert, you remember Robert Brittingham? Robert was over our 10 Compass and all the evaluations.
I know who you're talking about.
So he had a contract for like 12 years, 10 years at that time. And he was just getting tired too. He had been a principal at Michigan Avenue here for 2 years. And then he was getting kind of tired and wanted to back off a little bit. So he trained me about the evaluation system here. And so we met with Dr. Cash, and I told her, I said, no, I'll do everything I'm doing, and I'll add the evaluation stuff so we can keep it going. So she said, "That's great, awesome."
So
So
you don't have to do you have to do any licensure work or anything like that?
he did all that.
Because I think
I
that's where I
asked,
know his name
yeah, I
from.
don't. I asked not to do any licensure work. I
Okay.
said I'll take care. I'll take the all the evaluation stuff off of you.
Uh-huh.
Make sure it's running right. People, principals doing what they need to do, and teachers are where they need to be, and all that. I said, but I don't want anything to do with the 10 compass. And so he's doing that. So I just took over the evaluation stuff. So there's 3 things I do now,
Uh-huh.
and had 2 new principals this past year, Valley View and Charleston. They were my last ones. I don't know that I have anybody next year. I don't think we have a new principal, but I'll still work with them for another year to, some things. But
You loving this?
I'm telling you, Steve Montgomery, he's jealous every time I talk to him. He said, "Man, you got you just." I said, "I'm blessed." I said, "I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm blessed. The Lord has blessed me." I said, "Dr. Cash is blessed." I said, "But he said, well, the thing about it, that's the most needed job." He said, because we always, when we have to leave, knowing we've got somebody can come and cover for us. He says it's huge. He said, because you can't just have anybody,
Yeah.
go, especially for a long term.
Yeah.
It's been great.
And that mentorship angle, that's such a huge deal to, now that 34-year-old principal that just got handed an elementary
Yeah,
school doesn't have to just figure it out.
yeah,
Like, I mean, they got to figure some things out
they
naturally, but
do, they do.
to have a Tim Riggs to kind
We
of lean on.
we share. Sheena and I came up with a program to 8 years ago. To what to discuss every month, but also when I go in and meet with them, I said, "All right, I'm going to shut up and you just tell me what's going on and what questions do you have or what's happening." And I let them have their time first, before I go into my standard. All right, we need to go over this now or this.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, "It's your time." It's just, and so it's neat just to see how they grow and the issues they face. I won't, I'll tell them what I've done, but I'll first ask as a, what do you think you need to do? So it's just a learning thing, just
Yeah.
like you would as a teacher comes in and you're training them.
Yeah.
You don't want to hand feed them with everything. You just say, "Hey, tell me what you would do in this circumstance."
Sure. Now, don't name any names. I know you wouldn't anyways, and don't give me any specifics on anything. But over 8 years now, can you see any recurring things that you're having to help with constantly? And the way I'm asking that is for anybody listening to this that may have just caught their master's or their EDS and they want to be a principal one day. What are the kind of things that they're gonna have to come to you about? Is it relational things? Is it people things?
It really is. The relationships is huge. Not everybody's cut out to be a principal or a leader. I mean,
Sure.
it's just, some have come and left, and some, just didn't like it. But it is about relationship building, and that's what mainly my focus is about. Is relationship. I took 2 of them I have this year over to Steve Montgomery, and Steve is a master at how he treats his people and what he does to promote morale, and that's his gift. And so I said, we're going over to meet with Steve, and we did, and they loved it because he would tell them things that he would do. And but it's all the same thing it's always been. I'm just kind of help guiding it, of where they need to be. And because I mean, I've been gone 8 years now, so some of the stuff I've done is old school stuff. But I know what principles to take them to, and
Sure.
we had some field trips in my first one with Jeremy and all the others. We went to the juvenile court or juvenile. I wanted them to see where the kids got taken, where when they suspended them to the board or whatever, or they had to. I said, you need to see what it is. And so I knew Judge Swafford at that time, and called him. And he said, "Bring them over." So we took them all over there, and they got to see what all that was about. And it's just a training ground for them. But
Yeah.
it's amazing to me how much they grow in a year.
Yeah.
I mean, they just and we talk about it. Our last session, I'll say, "All right, tell me some things you've learned and that you wouldn't do again," or and it's amazing what. And they feel better. Oh man, I know how to do this or not. Because that first year is like, oof. When you're told you're in charge of 300 to 600 plus kids, 20 to 60 people in a community, and you got to deal with board members and you got to deal with commissioners. You never would think the principalship would be a political thing, but it is. You have got to. It's probably like you guys, when you were in law enforcement. I tell my son that all the time. I said, "You take care of people, and they'll take care of you." And I said, "But it's just to navigate the political world too. That's That's something you don't get trained on."
Yeah, you have to learn pretty quick to be quick to listen and slow to speak.
And they'll call you, and I'll say, "You'll get a phone call," and you're going, "What in the world's going on here?" But because it's just the political world, but it's I learned from the masters at that when I was starting, with your Teddy Brysons and your Roger Rose and well, especially Herbert Lackey. I mean, he knew exactly. So you just learn, and how to. I mean, you got to get stuff for your school.
Yeah.
And so you got to get your board members there, and you got to they're the only ones going to fight for your school. And so I tell these new principals invite them in your school and just make them understand what your vision is and what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
But it's been a great thing. Jeremy and I were talking before this podcast, just catching up on things of the high school world. I told him, I said, I'm sorry I couldn't help you in the high school world. I said, I don't have a clue about the high school world. And he said, well, luckily I was there before, but I don't, schedule stuff like that. I wouldn't have a clue on the high school world. But
well, I hear you. You're being humble, but I do understand what you're saying. It's a different monster, but when you're talking about dealing with issues and dealing with your community and your politics, it's all of that. It's just imagine you combine 4 elementary schools and that would be something like that. But when you start bringing up schedules, I'm the same. I live here every day, and I would, man,
it's a different world.
I know communication's a big thing. Having worked for 3 principals now, I know me. I'm not that. I'm the guy that you can pop something on me right now, and I may not love it, but I'm gonna figure it out. We're gonna be all right. But
you're flexible. That's what we like to.
I'm flexible, but I'm often the guy that's out in the hallway when because I know what's happening, and the other teachers will be, "What are we doing here? What are we doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, everybody just relax, everybody." But let me start bringing this in for a landing, because while I could talk to you for 8 hours, I want to be respectful of your time. One more question, sort of where we've been for the last few minutes. Let's say there's someone listening to you right now, and they're working on their degree. They want to go into administration one day. What are some things now that they can be, the Bob Taylor tasks that they can be doing to start preparing themselves to make transition?
Oh, well, I would tell anybody, and I've told many people that have asked me that wanted to be principals, and I would offer the help any way I could. But what I tell them, first and foremost, are you ready to leave the classroom? If you're not ready to leave that classroom, then don't be an administrator, because you may think you might go back and teach, but if you do the day-to-day thing, you won't have time. Things come at you so quick. So that's the first thing I say. If you're ready, and these people that have come to me with 6 years experience, I said, you don't know, you don't need to do it at 6 years. You're not ready. You
Mhm.
need that experience with kids and working with colleagues and seeing how things work. And I said, then, because once you become a principal, it's hard to go back. Now you could just say, Dr. Cass, I'm ready to go back in the classroom. This is not for me. But you've invested a lot of your time and energy, and you'll lose financially, but some people, that's what they do, and that's fine. But I want them to avoid that at all cost if possible, so make sure they're ready to leave that classroom.
Mm.
Because if you're ready to leave the classroom, then you ask your administrator to give you tasks, because you go in and you interview for these jobs, and the first thing they're going to do is, what have you done to prepare yourself for this?
Mhm.
And if you say, I just came out of the classroom, well, then you've not done anything to prepare. So you have got to just say, I've helped the administrator do master schedules. I have, taken on extra job duties, done the best duty for teachers. I've done this or done that, or I've sat in for the principal, just anything you can do to prepare for that,
Mhm.
because it's on the job training. You can go to school all you want, but until you get in that, sit at that desk and parents start firing at you, that's when you learn, what to
Yeah.
do. But I think it's a great job. It's not for everybody.
Mhm.
And I would always encourage people to be if Bradley County, I don't, there's some assistant administrators here at mainly the secondary level, except for one elementary, but I tell them, I said, hey, shoot for an assistant principal role, or coach role, or instructional coach, or something to help you see if you can deal with people
Mhm.
in that capacity. Because
Sure.
if you can't, you don't need to be in that role.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
'Cause that's one thing, coming from the sheriff's office to here, I have a little bit different eyes for certain things, and I would see on both sides of me throughout the hallways that teachers just the idea of calling parents
Yeah,
scares
yeah,
them to
yeah.
death. Now, I say them, that's very broad.
Oh yeah,
There's people that are super professional, they
yeah,
don't mind it a bit. And from day one, I enjoyed it.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
looked forward to
yeah,
it. Um, but I can see that
yeah,
that being a hurdle for
yeah,
some young person that wants to be an administrator, but
yeah,
they have
yeah,
a hard time talking to parents. And I have to remember that some of these teachers, and this I don't mean this. This could sound really disrespectful, and I do not mean it this way. But I have to remember coming from the outside in that some of these people were dropped off at kindergarten,
yeah,
and they've been in a school building ever since.
yeah,
So that helps me make sense of that.
yeah.
Um, so I would say I guarantee that's good advice.
Well, and it's society today too. Just we're getting away from the face to face stuff. I don't know what it is. I've seen this. When I was still a principal, that teachers didn't want to call people, and I'm thinking, well, if you develop that relationship with parents, now there are going to be those parents and teachers that just don't jive, don't they don't like each other, and I understand that's where I get involved, and
Hmm.
do that. But other than that, if you getting to know your people, your teachers, and your parents, and there's a good relationship there. And I always told my teachers, I said, your first call is the positive call. Your second call needs to be the positive call. I said, because your third call is not going to be so nice,
Hmm.
but they're not going to say that every call you've made
Hmm.
is a negative. You don't like my child.
Yeah.
That's the first thing they say.
Yeah.
But you can say, no, man, I've talked to you twice, and we've, so it's a relationship. And I thought Mitch and I go through this, with SROs. I've helped principals deal with SROs. And I said, it's about relationships. If you have a relationship with that SRO and you treat them as a faculty member, and you know your limitations, but you are partners. And I told Mitch, I don't know anything about security, keeping these kids safe. I know what I would do, but as far as training, I've never been trained. And I said, that's where you come in from. And he did all my fire drills, and he did all that because, but we had that relationship. And it's the same thing with teachers and parents. You got to be able to have that. And if you don't like to talk to parents as a principal, you don't need to be a principal.
No, yeah, I would say not.
But it's
our buddy Ron Spangler. I got sent to Ocoee Middle as a SRO because there's a bunch of them scared of Ron Spangler.
Really?
They didn't know how to deal with Ron.
Well, Ron, he wanted to have that persona. He but he and I walked all the time. That was our thing. After school, we'd go walk, and after we retired, we walked.
Yeah,
together. And he's just old rough and gruff coach sometimes, but when you got to know him, he was the nicest.
When I first went there, I felt what they were talking about. Oftentimes you'll walk down the hallway and he might not even make eye contact but the more I pushed that, because I was hell bent when I went there, I'm going to crack this shell. I'm going to figure this out. And the more I got to know him, the more I realized every time he didn't necessarily go out of his way to break his neck and say hi, he's thinking about how he can help some kid or help something. The more I got to know him, from the time he woke up in the morning till the time he went to sleep at night, he was thinking about his community and his school. Yeah. I love that dude.
Ron's I miss him all the time.
Yeah,
he's a great man and got some great kids. I mean, he and Sherry, they've done a great job as parents and great kids, and I give Patrick a lot of grief. Of course, his brother gave me a new knee. So Brittany and I, she was one of my mentees a little bit. I told her, I said, I don't know how to help you, Brittany. I said, you're in a world over here I don't have a clue about. But we would talk about some things, and I love Brittany to death. And
that's quite a role she's in over there.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a very different role.
She is. My wife and I were talking about, or no, it was Steve Montgomery and I were talking about how people land where they need to be. And Brittany, I couldn't think of anybody else that could have done that job with her business background.
Yeah.
To be able to handle that job like she has and promote it like she has, and to deal with all these legislators and all these, and of course, Dr. Cash is a master at that. So it's but Brittany does a fantastic job with those people. That would be a weakness of mine. I don't have that, to be able to start that, but that's her passion,
Yeah, she's good at it. She's good at it. Well, listen, I appreciate you spending some of your time on me and allowing me to record some conversations with you. And I'm one person in our county that is super glad to have you alongside our new principals. That's such a big deal. Even from my level, I'm just a teacher over here, but it is such a big deal knowing that these new principals, whether young or old, they don't have to just do any guesswork if they don't want to. Like you said, you got to figure some things out, not necessarily baby bird them to death, but I feel good knowing that you have a hand in their beginnings. So
I appreciate it, and it's been a blessing. I love this county and this school system. It's been good to me, and I just want to give back, and been able to do that. Been blessed, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to bring back good memories through this talk.
Well, listen, I find this. I told Danny Coggin last week. It's silly of me to think that I can get some whole story in just a couple hours, and I'm sure there's.
Yeah, it's been. I couldn't believe I've talked this long. So
We're at 2 hours.
holy cow.
We're at 2 hours, and I could ask you 100 more questions without ever breaking out a notepad.
Well, I enjoyed it. I appreciate you and what you've meant. Your family has been a great family to me. I remember your dad back when you were in school and saw him out at Johnston Woods when he was out there. And
Yeah.
great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's a good dude.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I tell everybody, I don't know how long this little project we're doing will last, but if it lasts long enough, I'd love to have you back. And now we won't have to start it.
Well, you get
Fort
a couple
Lauderdale.
of few principles, and we'll talk to you about the old days, and that'll be a good little thing.
Yeah, that'd be
You
very
might not be
cool.
able to control them, but
Oh yeah, we'll get like a little liar's table going on.
yeah, we had
like,
lunch the other day with Bob and Gary Austin and Tom Losh and a few others had lunch. Man, it was a good old time. Alan Morris. It was.
Oh wow,
We had a good time just
That's a
eating
crew.
and sharing about stories.
that's awesome.
So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you so much, and
Welcome.
everybody, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.